now we're going to have our a real treat. Now we have an issue that is very important for U.S.-India relations, and that is sustainability. Stanford is in particular a place that's great to talk about sustainability because of our new school, the Doer School of Sustainability. And we have two fabulous speakers here to talk about how India looks at sustainability, but also how the United States and India are partnering to make for a greener, 21st century. So with that, I'm excited to introduce our speakers. So our first speaker is a man who many of you most likely know, is the Dean of the Sustainability School, Dr. Arun Majumdar. And our other speaker is the chairman of the GreenCo group, one of India's most exciting green technology companies, Mr. Anil Kumar Chalamalasetty. And they will be moderated by a good member of our SciPec team, who's actually a PhD candidate in the School of Sustainability. So Sai, take it away.
Thank you. Nothing, do you moderate? Where do you want to sit?
I can sit here.
Sit here, please.
Thanks so much, Arman. It's an absolute honor and a privilege to be sitting with Dean Arun, Mr. Anil. It's two of the biggest names, I think, when you talk about sustainability in India. Dean Arun needs no introduction at all. He's the inaugural dean of the Stanford Doer School of Sustainability. He did graduate work in Berkeley, but we will not hold that against him. And I think one thing that stood out to me about the dean is his ability to distill down an immense amount of data points into simple, actionable requirements for the future. And I think that's something that's important in policymaking, and that's something I'd like to learn more about in this conversation. Mr. Anil, first-generation entrepreneur, doing incredible things in India, and we'll hear more about that from him, hopefully now. And one thing that I really inspired me about him was, in our interactions with him, he approaches things with a genuine sense of curiosity and humility. And I think that's something that really, is required to succeed. And I think that's part of why he's so successful. So just two incredible people on stage. So we'll try to learn as much as we can. We'll start with just some introductory questions. So the dean in one of his speeches over the last couple of days, he mentioned we have to act on sustainability with the urgency of now, and he quoted late MLK on this. And so just a general question to the both of you on the urgency of climate change and the environmental crisis. How quickly do you think India must act, and how broadly do you think we can achieve this goal of 45% reduction of emissions by 2030? Please.
First of all, I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate all the students at Stanford for putting all this together. So it's a big round of applause to them. Also great to see that Motwani Jadeja partnership with you all. You mentioned about my graduate studies at Berkeley. Rajiv and I were grad students together, and where is Asha? I don't know if she's here. So Asha, we have known each other, and here's where we'll give away our age, for about 35 years. And so it's a long history of family friendship. And I'm so glad to see that Rajiv and Asha and the partnership with the students at Stanford. Yeah. I think, the quote you mentioned about urgency of now, it's actually, his quote is about the fierce urgency of now. And he obviously, made this comment at a different time for different reasons. It was about the civil rights movement, and he said, you got to get going, and you got to do it now. And I think you can see the same urgency related to climate issues. Yesterday, I mentioned about the next couple of decades are going to be super important. And because it's like COVID, if you don't handle it early enough, it's going to get worse. And And the impact of climate is really the tropical regions are going to feel it much more than the temperate regions like out here. Here we may get a few, extra rain once in a while, which we did last year. But frankly, the heat and humidity waves and the other floods and things like that, the glaciers melting, this is going to be serious. And I think in addition to the decarbonization, the adaptation issues are super important. And because we don't want people to suffer or die. And I think that balance between, it's not really an either or, it is an and. You have to decarbonize, and Anilji is like the leading figure in the inflection point that someone talked about earlier. But that's the decarbonization part. But there's also the climate adaptation, which is about people and communities. So I think both going through that together, that's the urgency that we have now.
Right. No. Yeah. If you'd like to.
Hi, good evening all. Thanks, Sai. Thanks for having me here. Try to articulate as best as I can, but as Arunji was explaining as a professor, I can't able to put through in. But as an organization, I think we've been on this renewable journey to start with 15 years back. I've been hearing a COP15, which is a tremendous positioning the whole Kyoto protocols and bringing down the US, India, having and rips towards it. How the whole globally we can all act upon towards this decarbon mitigation plans of reduction of energy. But saying all this, we still see certain level of, and while India has been way ahead, very committed, it has delivered its obligations probably in a year ahead, and coming towards 2030, much aggressively towards, while India is 1/3 of the global average energy consumption or the footprint of the carbon emissions, but still saying that India's energy growth is coming out within green as in sustainable forms. So that's why actually we're able to see how we have comments to make, but the urgency has been felt within the government of India by policy making, by infrastructure to develop, and the resourcefulness to create, to various sectors to evolve in a more sustainable manner. Let's really see that.
That's great. I think if you could give us some insight into what GreenCo is doing. I'm sure many people already know, but how GreenCo is tackling the sense of urgency and how they're moving so quickly and so efficiently.
I wouldn't say we've been done any great innovations, but we have actually been very using a simple, scalable solutions, making it economical to reach the markets. While we have started the platform 15 years plus years with less than 3 biomass projects with 21 megawatts. By 2018, we've been at 7,500 megawatts operational. Today we're 10 gigawatts. But last 5-6 years, we have moved ourselves from an electron generator towards an electron manager, to building in hydro pump storage as a storage services, building across the country. The first 10 gigawatt scale asset getting commissioned next quarter, which integrates with co-located with the 4,000 megawatts of solar and 1,000 megawatts of wind. How it enables towards a decarbonizing industrialization, where it gives a firm and flexible round-the-clock renewable energy, which is a big opportunity for decarbonizing the industries and discoms. So I would say this has all been enabled by the policy making and regulation making to the government of India and the great infrastructure in various sectors that we're building. Fundamentally, if you want to see India being blessed within one nation, one grid, one frequency, which enables towards and having access towards the renewables, either from Himalayan regions, either in the central India, semi-arid lands where you can do a lot of solar, and lots of coastal and southern peninsula, which has got a huge amount of wind renewables. So having a storage as an opportunity across the country on one nation, it enables towards making as an manufacturing hub. So while we're able to build this level of a large scale 100 gigawatt hours of a storage platform, we now actually moved ourselves from an energy manager towards a molecule creator. So with the 2 gigawatt scale of electrolyzers manufacturing plant of alkaline, which we're setting up, we now start developing in 5 million tons of ammonia from 1 million tons of hydrogen. So this enables towards making electrons to convert into molecules, which can be transportable to various countries. And from there, we're cracking back ammonia and delivering hydrogen to the end systems, either in the OECD markets. So that has started opening up towards a larger marketplace. We want to see as India, as an energy market, whole global economy is $100 trillion. Out of that, $13 trillion is energy market. In $13 trillion, you have less than $2 trillion as power market. In that, less than $2 billion is renewables market. Once you can able to convert the green electron into the green hydrogen and other molecules, you are penetrated into the 200 billion market towards $11 trillion market. So today we have solutions available right now to creating in wind and solar electrons, converting to green hydrogen, integrating them with captured carbon dioxide, making a SAF, or they can make a methanol, which can go into the olefins. The whole value chain of all the petrochemical byproducts, which have been used day to day across, those all can be produced in the greener form. Yes, whether it's going to be an on par, economical, or a discount, I think it's the start of a journey. Today, we could able to make a green hydrogen, which can be exportable towards the European markets, which will be able to cost them $7 to $8, while we're making it $3, packing them back in nitrogen, sending them as ammonia, and delivering towards an OECD markets at $5-6 level. So this level of opportunity, what we've been investing. So as a group, while we had carbon-free electrons helping the industries to decarbonize or discoms to decarbonize, now we moved on to then carbon-free molecules to creating feedstock chemicals to the European markets industries, like high-value chemicals, chloralkalis, ammonia, and so on forth. And then moving on to the materials and metals, and how to get them the carbon-free materials and metals.
That's incredible. The vision is incredible, I think.
Elaborative, but I just wanted to...
No, absolutely. But tying into that, I wanted to ask is, we had an entrepreneurship panel before this, and majority of the tech entrepreneurship efforts are very different from things like this, which require a substantially higher amount of investment. I'm sure that's a topic that someone else had asked about earlier as well. And I wanted to ask, Dean Arun was on the leadership for ARPA-E, which is, I think, in my opinion, one of the coolest things ever. How do you think India can implement how can India fund high risk, high reward green technologies and green entrepreneurships so that we see more startups such as GreenCo popping up?
First of all, I just want to build on what Anilji said, and to give the context of the times we're living in. We are going through a paradigm shift. If you go look at the automobile industry, going from gasoline and diesel to electrification after 100 years, it's a tectonic shift in that whole auto market, right? You look at the electricity generation, solar and wind are becoming the cheapest way to produce electricity, outperforming many of the other ways, fossil-based. This is a tectonic shift as well, except that the grid was never designed for renewables, which is why the storage is so important. So if you look at the sectors, whether it is renewables, whether it's storage, pumped hydro is the cheapest way to store electricity. And there are at least 10 technologies, 10 sectors, each of them a few $1 trillion per year sector. And we are at the cusp of these new sectors being developed. So if you're an entrepreneur and you have enough life ahead of you, unfortunately I'm too old for this, you cannot find a better time. And that because the semiconductor industry is a few $1 trillion. We're talking about 10 of those starting simultaneously. And that's the opportunity, right? So you asked about ARPA-E. ARPA-E's job, was to create technologies that are not following the current learning curves, right? Every technology, whether it's storage or ammonia, when you start, it's expensive. When you do it more and more, and the cost comes down, that's a learning curve. The economists call it the learning curve, although they still don't know exactly how to explain the exponent of that learning curve. Nevertheless, and ARPA-E's job was to create new learning curves, which initially may look expensive, but have the potential to be cheaper than the current state of the art. And so that becomes disruptive. Because at some point, if you really want to change the paradigm, there will be disruption. And that requires new technologies to come in. So that was the purpose of RPE, and it's been around for now 14, 15 years. It's politically stable now. It wasn't when I was there. Nevertheless, it's going on. Now, in India, there's no reason why India cannot create an RPE, and it is really the combination of the research that is going on at the universities, combined with the startup culture. GreenCo is no longer a startup; it's a big company now.
Right.
But this whole innovation value chain, it's looking at that and creating organizations in the government, because the government has a role to play. Its role to play is to create the policy environment for GreenCos and all to thrive and accelerate, but it's also the R&D part upfront to create the disruption, because companies by themselves, a large company by itself, is unlikely to create disruptions automatically, right? But if some disruptions happen, they can pick it up and scale. And I think that's the opportunity that India certainly has. But it's up to India to decide whether to do it or not.
Right. Just piggybacking on that, in terms of just talking about getting the capital to make sort of the big changes that you're making, what do you think was the most influential decision or the most influential input that you got that helped you sort of figure out funding these insanely visionary efforts?
I think it's fundamentally, as I mentioned earlier, we had a humble start. So we had a very, very various forms of an access of capital with a small piece to start with. Then we had a smaller markets to access. So in the process, as I was started the whole platform from London as NRI and started the company from London. So we always followed the governance. This being an industrial infrastructure company, I think it doesn't apply towards tech companies a little differently. But when it comes to infrastructure business, when it comes towards when new transformation, what we're speaking is happening now. But 15 years back, when we've been as a renewable energy company, this again goes with a very competitiveness of how you can differentiate. But at the given moment, the environment when we started and what's happening now is very, very very, very different. Today, the whole opportunity of the global is the change and impact. What are the ideas? What are the business models you have? If it can make an impact, it can make any change, I think the economics will follow. Once that commons can be built, I think there's enough capital, like I would say, for an net zeroing efforts, when probably we require less than $25 trillion per annum in total. Per annum, less than $4.5 trillion per annum next 6 years, which we can 100% achieve this net zero thought process. But saying that there's $300 trillion just between the funds of Sonia funds, it can be in various forms of funds. The capital is available, the market is there, and the needs are there in every sector. It's all that we need to have a right articulation, right in the business model to deliver what your objectives have been designed for. I'm pretty sure that small to large capital, especially being this part of the world, you have huge access to capital.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's a great take. Everything's just there. You need to
have right focus, determined to deliver things.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great. Moving on to that, I think we can talk a little bit about, we know partnerships with governmental entities, with academic institutions is very important for developing these new technologies, for implementing them in the markets. What do you think, in your opinion, for GreenCo? What was the most important partnership, or what was the most important, whether that be an academic institution, whether that be financial institution? What do you think was the best sort of synergy that helped?
No, it's a very good point. My first time been to US was 1998, which is something like 25 years back. And from that time to 6 months earlier, my visit, I might have been lived in US, but I came more than a dozen times. Maximum I was here for 25 days in total, my 25 years. But last 6 months onwards, a year onwards, I was trying to understand the universities, how academia is integrated with an industry in US, that fascinated me. And that actually from last 1 year onwards. So parallelly, we have a huge gap in how the academia in India works and industry works. Though there's a recent shift into the ministry and which was pushing to change the new policy with as a new India wise, with Dharmendra Pradhan HRD ministry. So on his guidance, so we have partnered with an IIT Hyderabad developing a small, not standard Doer school, but a school of sustainability in IIT Hyderabad, because when it comes to sustainability, it's nothing to do with innovation. It's bringing the multidisciplinary departments thinking into one thought process, making some fundamental changes to aligning it towards a more sustainable manner of an education as well to deliver. So this level of a concept was missing. So I was trying to implement that in IIT Hyderabad. So to understand how it can be operational in US, I was mind blown. So this is how actually in India has to win, will greatly benefit. I think innovations can't be done within the corporates. It will happen only at the institutions. And institutions and professors has to understand what's there in the market. Unless settle they are out in the market, which Indian ecosystem has not been done there. So all the professors, all the departments, leadership has to understand what they brought outside there. It's not there for them to teach how it works. They have to learn to students how they can innovate new things, which is the whole thought process in the scene, even the esteemed colleges back in India, which is lacking and is just now changing there. I think the more integration of industries within local industries, it can be in domain institutions that will have a huge impact on India's growth story.
Right. Oh, yeah, that is very important. And I was really happy to see IIT Hyderabad have a sustainability school. That's close to where I'm from. So when talking about technologies that can disrupt and can help solve this problem of climate change, there's so many, right? There's so many coming up now through programs like ARPA-E, otherwise in academic institutions. Which such technology do you think will have the most impact in India that you've seen recently, and which sort of excites you? Whether that be dealing with resilience, whether that be dealing with water, biodiversity, CO2 sequestration, or any of these, which do you think is one tech that really you think has the capacity to go the distance and make a difference?
Well, I mean, I think what we are seeing right now is the integration of renewables. There are multiple, as you said. What Mr. Kant talked about yesterday, 500 gigawatts. That's a big number. Just so you know, the US electricity capacity, the US grid is 1,000 gigawatts. Okay, so India needs to be at that scale also. And so, which is about 2 or 3 times the current capacity, something like that.
Yeah,
the total capacity will be. So here's the opportunity that India offers and has, is that the US infrastructure is already built, right? And we are kind of replacing coal with, renewables, et cetera, right? But in India, it's all new. And it can, as Mr. Kant pointed out yesterday, and correctly so, that it has the opportunity to showcase how an economy at that scale and a country at that scale can create a pathway that is different from what the global north and the west has gone through. And in that process, create an economic showcase, de-risk the process, because any change is risk. We may talk about innovation out here, but if you go to Wall Street, they say, innovation is risk. And so the cost of capital will go up. And so I think de-risking that and using that as a showcase is a huge thing. So, renewables is certainly part. Electrification of transportation. And the transportation in India is very different from transportation out here. Most of the people go in two or three wheelers. 2 or 3 wheelers, you can take the battery home and recharge it and bring it back, and you can use it for power outages as well. So there's a lot of multiple use for that, which is unique to India. I think the use of agriculture, so let me back up a little bit. There is no question that we will have to remove CO2 from the atmosphere, and someone should get paid for it, because of the fact that CO2 lifetime in the atmosphere is several hundred years. So it's like a giant capacitor that is accumulating this CO2, which has come mostly from the global north, right? If the Indian agricultural sector, in addition to growing food, and I call this Green Revolution 2.0, in addition to growing food and being not only, as Mr. Kant pointed out, not only self-sufficient, but exporter of food, if in the process it can develop using agriculture as a mechanism to take the CO2 out, put it back in the soil, they should get paid for it. And that is a trillion, at least $1 trillion per year market that is yet to be exploited, right? So there are many such things. Hydrogen, as you pointed out, Anilji, hydrogen is a growing market, the green hydrogen or electrolytic hydrogen. It's been around, but today it's only but like 5% of the US market. And the question is, how can you bring the cost down to be competitive to a fossil fuel-based thing? At the end of the day, whether we get a carbon price or no, or whatever policy, if you make it cheaper and better and faster, it's going to happen. And so that's the whole idea of innovation.
Yeah. Is there any technology that?
No, I think when as Mr. Arunji was mentioning, Dean Arun was mentioning about the needs and impact. When you're going to see this green hydrogen or green molecules, which are going to displace or replace the petrochemical outcomes of petroleum products, then we are seeing the whole global South countries getting advantage and taking an opportunity of it. Today, what I was mentioning of $13 trillion market was from the predominantly being served by the oil and gas producing countries.
Right.
When we could able to convert these green electrons, wind and solar, we are going to speak from right from whole Southeast Asia towards Africa and as well towards South America, where we can able to produce a lot of renewables, which can be converted into the green commodities, and which can not only create a wealth towards an underdeveloping and emerging countries, but also create a new products within decarbonized means. And especially when you go to say agriculture, in the agriculture sector as well, we have 40% of inflation is being added by because of the tractors and other utilities being using in diesel and so on forth, and being heavily dependent on the inefficient chemical pesticides and fertilizers. Once you're going to bring them in decarbonized means, or actually more efficient means of taking a tech towards an agriculture, towards enhancing the productivity and reducing the inefficiency, then we're speaking about super inflation-free economies. While he was mentioning about Mr. Modi want to have a 50% of net energy in the grid system from the renewable resources, it not only gives a carbon-free energy for the India's energy needs, but also it's going to give an inflation-free economy. So while India has been going towards 8-9%, 7% of a GDP growth, but it's always had a huge inflation because it actually has got a huge exposure towards global imports of oil and gas.
Right.
So when it's going to reduce that, lesser dependent on towards it, having inflation-free resourcefulness, then we're going to see a lot more economic power for the India to grow faster.
Yeah, no, that's big level impacts that things that you don't think about would be affected by this. One point that actually over the last couple of days, again, Dean Arun mentioned, he mentioned that 60% of Fortune 500 companies have pledged to meet climate goals, but they have no real plan. So who can help develop these plans? I know GreenCo is probably their whole goal, their whole aim is sustainability in the environment. So that's separate. But how do you think these 60% of these Fortune 500 companies could even?
Well, I think first of all, I'm really glad they made a commitment.
Okay.
So I think that it's like, as I always say, it's like marriage. You have to make a commitment first. And you got to figure out the details. So it's important to make the commitment. The details are not easy. The countries have made commitments. And we ask the question, do countries know exactly how to navigate? The answer is no. If you look at what the United States has done, the bipartisan infrastructure law, which has had more popularity than the Inflation Reduction Act, nevertheless, those two have been created, right? The Inflation Reduction Act is basically a bunch of carrots, the incentives. Now, that's all really important. Hydrogen has an incentive, $3 a kilogram. And so a lot of hydrogen companies are now coming to the United States from overseas, which is fantastic, right? But you can't change the whole economy just with carrots. You do need some sticks. And the sticks have not been, they are the first things that got dropped from the original bill, right? And if you go back in history, and the infrastructure in the United States got created by the New Deal during Roosevelt time after the Great Depression, right? And it was not one or two bills, it was a series of bills that had to be created. And I think that's what is needed. Unfortunately, our Congress is not quite functional at this point. Hopefully after the election, before the election, nothing is going to happen. After the election, hopefully we can get some more legislation going to actually turn that around. So it's not just corporation, even countries have not quite figured out how to navigate. And the question is, how do you do that? That requires analysis. That requires students from here stepping up and saying that we can figure. I'm actually teaching a course right now called Sustain 101A.
Okay.
Sustainable Energy for Future Presidents. That's the name of the course. And we throw the undergraduates, throw at them the question, okay, President Biden wants our electric grid to be 100% carbon free by 2035. How are we going to do it? And the answer is not trivial because there are, and we give a framework called DARES, decarbonization, which is, we have to do that. But it's not just that. It's affordability, that is A, reliability. So you can't go 100% solar without storage. That's affordability again, right? Equity and security. Because you cannot have an insecure or a grid that is not secure. So all of that, so the students out here are trying to figure out, and they have a presentation 2 weeks from now, how are they going to achieve that against that framework of decision making? And that's non-trivial.
Yeah.
And I don't think, there's a straight answer for this, but I think that we all have to collectively figure out, and the question is what policies are created in Washington and in Sacramento and all the other states so that you have a federal state partnership to actually achieve this. Because the grid, as we know, is local. So
it may be good to switch to audience questions because I know a bunch of people have questions.
Sure, no, absolutely. The last question was about advice, about for other entrepreneurs. We can get back to that after audience questions. Is there a mic?
I want to make sure that audience has a chance to ask the question.
Absolutely, no. They
So
have
I
been
have a
patient.
question. I want to start with your 101. So, it's a rare thing for a dean to teach undergraduate students 101 course. It's wonderful that you do. This session, this conference is about US-India engagement. And of course, the title is India's Path to Environmental Sustainability, but you have deep experience right here in the US. When you think about this critical technologies partnership between US and India, and you think about the next generation of innovators, because innovation is going to be critical to that, what do you think that young innovators on both sides of the ocean can do to learn together and to collaborate together to solve the challenges that may be common to both of these countries?
in my opinion, collaboration is a contact sport. It doesn't happen over Zoom. It can, continue over Zoom, but it really needs contact. And I really think that there's an opportunity out here to have, in addition to the graduate students who have come from India, of course, I came like that. There's a reverse thing that needs to happen. Americans need to go to India to really understand how the world actually works in that part of the world. Because sitting out here in Palo Alto, as much as I like this environment, it is a bubble. And one has to get out of the bubble to realize how the world really works and what are the issues that Anilji and all really care about, right? So that this exchange of people is super important. So if anyone's handling the visas and all, please get this fixed because this is, you need that people. And this is not just for energy and all, this is for security. This is for economic growth and many other sectors. So that's number one. Number two is that there will be innovations coming from here where, they have been maybe Stanford or Berkeley or someone or MIT, but that needs to scale. The market growth is in India. That's where scaling happens. I mean, I had the opportunity to visit Mundra with the Adanis. It's just amazing. They're putting a solar and wind farm at one place that is 15 gigawatts capacity. 15 gigawatts, that's a whole of California capacity in solar and wind at one location. And they're making solar panel manufacturing out there, wind turbine manufacturing, all that scalability is where India really comes in at this point. Not to say there's no innovation going on, but I think you will see with that exchange of people, you'll see innovations and scaling going both ways. And I think that would be a really healthy, just like we have seen for software and semiconductor. Well, semiconductor is a little bit one way right now, but nevertheless, that exchange, and because both are trying to figure out how to change our economy to a cleaner, to low carbon economy.
So a quick follow-up to that. Do we see a Stanford IIT Hyderabad partnership in the future?
Absolutely, absolutely. Why only IIT Hyderabad? Your alma mater, IIT Bombay.
Bombay, so it can be
And many.
one to many to many. I think that's how it has to be.
Many to many.
Many to many.
Right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing the insights. As somebody who got into energy because of India and wants to go build for India, what are the sort of obvious but important things to know for one looking to get into, let's say, hydrogen and do that for India?
So, yeah, thanks. So, basically, the policies are well in place. If you want to see when green hydrogen was spoken, let's say 2015-16, by as well driven with Japan, then Europe started speaking a lot about it. US was not loud about it, just evaluating. But until 2020, everybody was so serious about it's only then holy grail, which green hydrogen can be changed. But India was never in the picture of the whole hydrogen as an opportunity. But Mr. Kant took up the task by 2020, one end. By 2020, August 15th, on Independence Day, Mr. Modi has announced a hydrogen mission, green hydrogen mission. And within 2 years from now, we see actually a lot of PLI schemes has come up with electrolyzer manufacturing, and lots of policies have been brought into as in green open access, and having an export-oriented units been declared as a solar and wind so that they have lesser taxes. So though they didn't do it giving any subsidy, but they've designed a lot of framework around to make it faster and to deliver. With that opportunity, while the policy was declared to 2022, by 2025 end, I'm pretty confident we'll be the ones who are going to be producing the world's largest volumes of green hydrogen and exporting towards in Europe. So we have a right policy framework, we have a right technology, we have an infrastructure to support towards what we aim to do. I think the right technologies, and it's been open to all, and very transparent mechanisms where you can. It's been I would say it's a really new India now. I think, but you always have challenges. What we have in US is also same. I think where we want to go and work, we always have some policy, local implementation issues, which you have to be resilient towards and maneuvering them and passing through them. But otherwise, I think the new India is very, very different towards for industrialization and for entrepreneurship, to doing new things. I think it's a great opportunity to do so.
Cool. Is there any other questions? Oh,
Yes.
one more question. I wanted to also ask, in the meanwhile, both of you, we're privileged to have you here. What one sentence of advice for green entrepreneurs or, people working in the energy space that are excited about India? Any one piece of advice from?
I always keep saying that knowledge and courage is basis for an entrepreneurship. There is no box to think out of box. Just always understand and go from fundamentals of science and business values, and do what actually need to be goals are. Just don't follow existing rules. Design all the time your own rules from bottom up towards the market.
Okay.
Well, I mean, first of all, how many graduate students out here? Stanford graduate students. Okay, great. Non-Stanford graduate students. Well, first of all, the job of a graduate student is to graduate. So graduate with an education, with some understanding, skills, and you are in the most exciting, innovative ecosystem, arguably the most ecosystem in the world. And Silicon Valley is known for both technology as well as biotech. But I think this is a Silicon Valley 2.0 that needs to be created. But it's not just Silicon Valley, it is a global valley. And that is on the issue of sustainability, whether it's energy, water, food, biodiversity, all of that. And that's what our accelerator in our school is all about, is how do you create that? How do you not only take the innovation that's going on, but really understand scaling, and that is going on around the world, and bring it back to the university so that if you understand what the process is beyond the university, so it's not just about startup, it is startup to scale up. And then you can work on the right problems that are scalability. And we are developing a curriculum on this. So join in. We are going to make our curriculum freely available to the rest of the world. This is not about ownership and patents and making money. Yeah, that'll happen. But this is really about mobilizing the global community to address this, because this is a global issue.
Thank you so much.